Hi there, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Autumn Pies and Tarts live stream. We're really excited to have you join us. My name's Carrie. I am City Market's Assistant Outreach and Education Manager. I'm the one who's been sending you all of the emails, so it's nice to finally put a face to a name, at least for me, sorry. Really excited to have you join us tonight. If you're joining us a little bit late, you can always hit live. It's down near the play pause button, and that will catch you up to where we are in the stream rather than making you watch from the very beginning. If at any point during tonight's stream you have a question, you can put that into the question and answer box. I'll go behind the scenes after this and put an announcement into that so you can see where it is. I will see those and I can feed them to our instructor who can answer them as we go. So anytime you have a question or a comment or a suggestion, just put that in that box and I will see it. Our instructor tonight is Gary Stuard. We're really excited to have him. He's kind of sort of famous around here for his pies and tarts. So we're really excited to have him doing tonight's class. So without further ado, I think I'll let Gary take over, but I will be behind the scenes seeing all those questions come in. If you're watching, we'd love to know where you're watching from. So go ahead and put also your location into the question and answer box if you'd like to share. It's kind of fun to see where we see people watching from. So Gary, take it away.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Stuard, and I'm the pie guy. My husband and I, we are transplants from Dallas, Texas. We moved here about 2 years ago and wanted to be in a more progressive and more environmentally friendly environment, which we definitely have found. And we have found the people of Vermont to be super friendly. So it's really exciting, and this has just become our home. And one way of expressing home for me is sharing food. My mom was a great cook. Her mom was a great cook, Grandma Creagh. In fact, Grandma Creagh and her husband had a cafe outside of Breckenridge, Texas, out in West Texas, just east of Abilene, Texas. And they had a little diner. And he did the talking or gabbing, but she did the cooking. And her food was exceptional, especially her pies. Her pies were just manifestations of love. They were beautiful, they tasted wonderful, and I think that really planted the seed in me for liking cooking, being attracted to cooking, but also especially to baking pies and tarts and other kind of desserts. I was a loner as a kid and didn't feel seen by people very much, but I felt Grandma Creagh saw me and she valued me. And so for me, her pies were like God coming down in pie form and just embracing me. And I think that's the way I want to approach my cooking, be it pies or anything else, or anything that I do, is that it is a manifestation of my love for my friends. And I think when we cook, that should be the mindset that we have. It's not just a task. It's really a labor of love. And it's also art. Art is not just a painting or a sculpture or a piece of music. Food is an art. Baking, cooking is an art. And it's an expression of our deepest feelings and our love for each other. And I also see cooking as a way of building community. I've been an activist organizer for over 30 years, mostly in Texas. And while I was been here, I have also been active on environmental, social, racial justice actions. And for me, food is also a way of building community, which in these times I think is really, really important. So when we cook, when we bake, it's not just doing something, it's really manifesting who we really are and our love of others and our love of place. So with that, let's get started. The two pies that we're going to be doing tonight are the dark rum extra ginger pumpkin pie, which I have been making for over 30 years, and which I got from this little gem, the Vegetarian Epicure, book number 2. I want to acknowledge the people that I have learned from. It's a way of honoring our ancestors, if you will. And the other is a walnut tart, but it's a walnut maple coffee walnut tart with semi-sweet chocolate bits. I added the chocolate bits to the original recipe, walnut tart, which is in this pastry cook, the pastry cook, which is published from Great Britain. And as for the crust, I have tried many crust recipes through the years, and I think I finally decided the best all-around basic pie crust, unless you're going to do a special tart, comes from the Great Pies and Tarts from Carol Walter. But we have these posted, I believe, on the sites where people can look at the recipes that we're going to be doing tonight. So the first thing is the dough. And really, if you have a good crust, if we have a good crust, that's half of the battle. Because we've all have had pies or tarts where the filling is good, but the crust is kind of mediocre. Either it's too crumbly, or it's too tough, or rubbery, and that's not what you want. We want a crust that has great flavor and flaky. We want flaky crust, okay? And really one of the secrets to doing that I have learned is having everything cold as much as possible. Usually I keep my flour and my sugar, in the freezer to keep it nice and cold. And I'm from Texas, so during the summertime and even in the fall, it's hot. And so I even keep my silver bowl in the freezer as well. But here in Vermont, that's not necessarily needed, except maybe in the summertime, because not everybody has central air at home. So anyway, why have very cold flour and sugar and the butter and the shortening being cold? Because you don't want your butter fat and your shortening melting while you're working it in the flour, because then you will get a leathery, tough crust. And while that may keep the contents of the pie and tart inside, you don't want a leathery crust. We want something that is flaky but flavorful. And why butter and why shortening? Butter adds the flavor. We all love butter. But the shortening helps with the flakiness. Sometimes if you're doing just a tart, the crust usually, or quite often, it will be a sugar butter crust. But we're not going to be doing that one today. Even though we're doing a tart, the maple coffee walnut tart with chocolate bits, we're going to use a regular pie crust with that. So without further ado, we're going to first have a sifter. We need to sift the flour so it's a little white, and also it can combine the other ingredients, which are usually sugar and salt. Okay, so I'm doubling the recipe for the crust because I'm making two crusts, one for the pumpkin pie and the other for the walnut tart. So here we go. So that will be 5 cups of flour. 1. And I try to get it as precise as possible. 2.
So far, we have people watching from Missouri, Burlington, and Toronto, Canada, and Pennsylvania.
Wow, welcome everybody. Welcome. This is open to everyone. Master pie makers and, okay, that's 4, and newbies. And we've all been newbies one way or another when it comes to cooking, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's good to start learning I tell folks, especially guys, okay, it's like, come on, everyone should know how to make a pie. And it's quite impressive when you make a pie. You know, mom has done her part. Now it's time for us to do it.
Got El Paso, Texas now.
Hello, El Paso, Texas. I'm very familiar with that place. Okay, so now it's sugar. As a rule, I try to get all my ingredients as organic as possible, even the sugar, but that's up to folks. But I'm also haven't been pleased that the organic sugar comes in plastic containers, and I don't like plastic. So we have to, if people can find sugar in bulk, I think that's the way I'm going to go from now on. So we're going to have, let's see, 3 teaspoons of sugar. We don't want it to be like a cookie flavor. Oh, here we go. Since we're doubling this, it'll be 6 teaspoons.
Got Brooklyn, New York, and San Francisco. So we
San Francisco and New York.
We've
wow,
covered the United States and Canada.
That is awesome. Hello, New York, and a big hello to San Francisco. That is so awesome. Okay, and 3/4 salt, so not a full teaspoon. And then 2. Okay, there we go. Also, just a happy fall, everybody. A little bit of decoration, but there's another reason why I have the little pumpkin here. And this is a sugar pumpkin, by the way. But more about that later. So now we sift it. This is a good old sifter I've been using for quite some time. Get the big ones. You know, it's like if you're going to make a pie and you're having people over, particularly if they have a party, heck, make 2 pies. Why not? Okay, so we got that. Now comes the fun part of working in the butter. Now, when I first started making pies and reading pie recipes, my first teacher, so to speak, via book was, of course, the famous Martha Stewart. And the first pie book I bought was one of her first cookbooks, which was Pies and Tarts. And it's still a classic. And if you can track that down, that's great. So when they were talking about working into butter, they usually were talking about cutting the butter into like little pieces and what have you. And over the years, I just found, let's make it simple. When you have clumps of butter, it takes a while to work it in. So being, maybe it's because I'm from the South, we want to try to make things a little bit easier. And so I just find doing this with my butter just makes it so much easier. You see that? Now, even with that, I don't want to put too much down in the flour at once, because then it'll just start clumping. And we don't want that. So what I do, I sprinkle some of the sifted flour on the butter that I have cut with the grater, and kind of work it in with my fingers just a little bit. Just a little bit.
We've added Columbus, Ohio, and Nashville.
Wow. Hello, Nashville and Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. So great for y'all to be here. All right. Now this butter, I would prefer to be a little bit colder, but that's okay. Sometimes we can't always get what we want. I think some famous singer made that comment. So we work with what we got. Okay, but it's cool enough. So again, I work it in. So since I'm doing 2, I'll have 2 sticks of butter. And again, you know, I mean, to me, this doesn't look difficult. I mean, people are kind of scared of crust, or some people are saying, I can't do it, or no, it's not difficult. It's just important to keep in mind some things that are very important. Again, keeping things as cold as you possibly can, okay? And also, when it gets towards the end of this, I just dip it in the flour, and it's easier to manage, just like that. Okay. Now, when I'm making my pies, I put on some nice music. Why not make it enjoyable? You know, this is not drudgery. This is art. This is a party, really. So before the party, you have your own party, which is you can have your favorite drink. Though I would suggest, you know, wait on the wine or cocktails later. We want to have our wits about us as we're making. But make a wonderful cup of coffee, chai tea, have a, you know, some sparkling apple cider. While you're doing this, light a candle, send a candle, have some music in the background. Just enjoy it, because, you know, how we present ourselves, how we are thinking and feeling when we're making food does have an impact on, I think, how food comes out. If we're too anxious, angry, we may forget things. And why not enjoy it? I also, my background does include having been a Zen Buddhist monk for about 4 years with a Vietnamese Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh. And for us, everything that we were doing at the monastery, and not just when we were doing sitting meditation in the Zendo, but it was also cooking, cleaning the bathroom, working in the garden. Everything was a mindfulness meditation. In other words, being fully present to what we're doing. That when we're making a pot, when we're washing a pot, when we were scrubbing the toilet, at that moment in time, that was the most important thing. Because by being fully present, we put our whole heart into it, and we're not doing anything half-baked. Okay? And when we're fully present, then we're able to enjoy all that's happening. And like right now, I can smell the butter, which is, I love butter. If I hadn't convinced you otherwise, I love butter. And I love that smell. I love the smell of the flour. Wonderful. And this is organic flour. And even though when I was in Texas, I would get Vermont King Arthur flour, because, you know, it was highly ranked, and it's important to me. And the feel of the flour and the butter is just, it's a wonderful feeling. You know, some people really love getting their hands into the dirt when they're doing gardening. For me, it's getting my hands into the flour, working in the butter, shortening, and knowing that I'm going to be creating something really delicious. Okay.
We have someone watching from Olathe or Olathe, I don't know how you pronounce it, Kansas.
Oh, Kansas. I lived in Kansas briefly after I graduated from high school in Pearland High, just south of Houston, Texas. I'm originally from Houston. But we moved to Topeka, Kansas. So I'm sure the person in Kansas knows Topeka, Kansas. And I remember how beautiful it was between Topeka, Kansas, which is a lovely little town, and Kansas City, particularly the area where Lawrence, Kansas is, where the campus of Kansas University is. Beautiful rolling hills. And around this time in fall, just gorgeous leaves, changing colors. It's wonderful. I love it. So again, I'm working the butter into the flour. And I want to have the butter not completely worked in. I mean, I don't want big clumps of butter. That's not helpful. But kind of have a very coarse meal where it's even a little coarser than that, where you can see little pockets of butter. And the same thing with the shortening. Very, very coarse, kind of like flour, like cornmeal. Okay, because we want those pockets of butterfat and shortening, which help with having a flaky crust. All right, remember, flaky isn't always bad when it comes to, at least it's not bad when it comes to a pie making. Okay, we want it as flaky as possible. Now, I think we got that. Pretty soon I'll be needing the cold water. Now, what is important is our water, we want it to be ice cold. If you're lucky like my husband and I are, we have a water cooler in our home, and the water is very cold. Even though it's not ice, it's very cold. And so that kind of makes it easier. But again, this goes back to the importance that everything should be as cold as possible, which facilitates having the butterfat and shortening, those not melting too early. Again, a cold, all the ingredients cold will ensure that your crust won't be rubbery. Okay, we don't want rubbery crust, and I've learned that if I'm serving rubbery pie crust, my guests don't like it either. Okay, so here we go. So since I'm doubling the recipe for the crust, now I'm putting in a full cup of refrigerated non-hydrogenated vegetable shortening. Now, from the South, her mother used Crisco. I use the Spectrum Culinary Organic All Vegetable Shortening because it's non-hydrogenated, which is a little bit healthier. Okay, it's not as unhealthy as Crisco. And if this had been available to my mother and to Grandma Creagh, I'm sure they would have used it, but they didn't have that back then. Now, this is a cutter, and I will be using this to cut in the shortening, and you just do it like this.
We have someone from Oregon. I've been corrected on how to pronounce it. It's Olathe, a suburb of Kansas City, so welcome. And we have Michael from Portland asking any comments on using vodka when making the crust.
I have heard people tell me that they have used vodka and that it ensures a flaky crust. I haven't done that. I kind of keep my vodka for my cocktails, my lemon drops, or whatever. But people swear by it, and there are a number of legitimate ways of making pie crust. This isn't the only way. This is the way that I found very helpful. But I've heard people using vinegar as well. So I may just go ahead and try doing that. I would just say, make sure you have a recipe and follow the recipe. You know, I guess my approach has been, okay, at the beginning, I didn't know really how to make pie, though I remember watching my mother. And so it's like, okay, let me find a recipe that looks good. And when I choose a cookbook, I choose a cookbook that has pictures, okay? I want to see what the finished product looks like. I think that's important. Does it look attractive? Does it look delicious? Okay, and then I follow the recipe. And until I feel like, okay, I'm comfortable with this, I know how to do it, and then if I want to tweak it, then I'll tweak it. I may add an extra spice, use a different spice, add chocolate. I like, when I'm making a fruit pies, I like adding alcohol to it. Of course, the alcohol cooks away, but it leaves the taste. And I've loved making strawberry rhubarb pie, but for a long time I have added not just the, orange zest and orange juice. I've also add Grand Marnier or Cointreau to it. Okay, and it just gives it a nice little zing, a little bit of a kick to it, which I enjoy. And I had folks, a catering friend of my husband and I, and a very well-respected caterer in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He tasted my strawberry rhubarb pie with Grand Marnier, and I was in the kitchen and he was in the living room, and he said, "Gary, this is crack," or something like that. And I thought he said, "This tastes like crap." I was so angry. And I came in and said, no, it tastes like crack. I mean, it was addictive. And so that was one of the best compliments I've ever had. Now, if you can see, you have little balls of shortening and butter. And that's what you want, okay? Just like that. You want to have little pockets of fat and shortening. Okay, now it's time for the water. Now, this is where we have to be very, very careful, because you don't want to pour in too much all at once, because then you'll get a little center of goo. We don't want that. We don't want that. And in fact, I may just go ahead and pour some of this in one cup. And just work in. There's some ice in here, so I don't want ice to get into my. So if you're using water, and you don't want ice to get in, you can do that. And then just a little bit at a time, like so.
We have someone who's joined us from Ottawa. So we have another Canadian friend. Hello.
Hello.
We also have someone asking about the pastry cutter again. If you could maybe just, when you have a second, hold that up to the camera and describe that, because I've never seen one before.
This is what a pastry cutter looks like. You have your blades. And again, this is where you can, you cut in your butter and your shortening. Now for me, when I use this for the butter, I really don't, I like using my hands, but you can use this instead. When it comes to shortening, usually, the shortening is harder than what we have right now. And so it's easier to use a cutter, but that if you have hard bits of shortening. So I just find that easier. So, but you can find whatever works for you.
Or if
for
you're
the
like
longest
me.
time, I would use a fork to cut it in. So, but I like using the cutter. It works well.
Or if you're like me and you have really, really warm hands, I can't use my hands or I'll melt all the butter.
Yes. Now, for me, my hands, Fred will probably attest, my husband, that my hands may not always be the warmest. So it kind of depends. What works best for you? What do you feel comfortable with? okay? There are certain hard rules, like anything, when we're doing art, be it cooking or painting, there's certain guidelines we follow, but then there's also some flexibilities, what works best for you, okay? So no problem there. And as you see, it's starting to clump. But again, we don't want it to be we don't want it to be too wet. Because when it's too wet, then we start getting a crust that it's sticky, it's going to be hard to work with. You have to add some flour to it, and there's a risk of it being too overworked, which we don't want. And then you'll again wind up with a rubbery, tough crust, and we don't want that. Now, as you can see, it's starting to really clump, which is good. And this is where, making sure our hands are clean, that this is where I can start using my hands. Because then I'll get the feel, is this like Play-Doh? Is this becoming like Play-Doh that it will naturally start clumping? I don't want it to still be a lot of dry, flour lying around. That won't work. So
Somebody asked if you ever would use 2 knives to cut in the shortening, like butter knives.
I've done that before. For me, I just found that cumbersome. I just like this. Our butter could have been a little bit further chilled to where it's, it's just like peeling cheese. It's that thick. It just comes out easier for me. Trying to do 2 knives, but if somebody finds that helpful for them or is easy for them, that's fine. There's many different ways of doing it. Sometimes it's like, what do you have? What equipment do you have available? Okay, you may find yourself at a cabin somewhere, and there's not many forks, or there's no cutter, and there are only knives. And so you have to improvise. But, I think a lot of folks probably still remember when their mom or their grandmother, or maybe their grandpa or dad made pie. And what worked for them, as long as they produce a great pie, then go with that. But again, it's just learning what works best for someone, okay? And like, I've been doing this for over 30 years. And so, I've had some time to experiment and see, okay, is this easier for me? And that's where I came up after a while, coming up with using the grater, the one with the slots on the side. I just found that just went so much quicker than trying to cut, the stick of butter and trying to work in, thicker bits. And as you can see, I'm working with 1 ball of dough at this time. I don't want to overwork it, but here you are. And I'm working on this one and trying to incorporate as much of the flour as possible. I was brought up, waste not, want not. And so it's like, well, I sifted this flour, I seasoned it, I put butter, and I put shortening in it, and so I'm not going to waste. It's going to use as much of this as I can, and so here I am. Working this one in. And again, you don't want to have too many like chasms in your ball of dough. I mean, when we roll it out, we want it to roll out easily. Okay, easily.
So in your recipe, it says to divide that recipe into 2 balls, and since we've doubled the recipe, is this 4 pies worth, or is this just 2 deep dish?
The pastry dough, this is just for 1.
Okay, but you
Okay.
still have them divided into 2 for chilling?
Oh, no, so I doubled the recipe because when it says pastry dough is for 1. And since we're doing 2, I made another one. Okay, let me put this away over here. And we're going to put this in the refrigerator. And we're going to let that chill for 30 minutes. Okay, and while that is chilling, then we can start making our filling. Okay, so congrats to us that we got that done. So if you were going along as I'm doing this, you made your crust. Congratulations. So now it's we're going to do the dark rum extra ginger pumpkin pie. I've learned that baking pumpkin pie, it takes a little bit longer for the custard to set. And while the custard is, well, the pie is baking, first you bake the shell, okay? And I'll show you how to do that. But before you pour your custard in, you pre-bake the shell, not completely. So it's 10 minutes baking with some baking paper covering the pie crust, and you put in either beans or I have gotten these ceramic pie weights, which keep pressure on the crust, as well as pricking the crust with a fork to prevent bubbling of the crust. Okay, and I have it covered for 10 minutes with the paper and the pie weights, and then I take it off and let it bake for 10 minutes more, and then I take it out, and then I let the pie crust cool before I put the custard or any kind of filling in. As a rule, you let your pre-baked crust cool for a while, because you don't want to inadvertently kind of scorch your filling or have it start cooking before it's time. So we'll put that there. Now, for the filling for the pumpkin pie. Now I know we've all had pumpkin pie, and sometimes it's how shall I say, kind of bland, which is sad because a great pumpkin pie is a wonderful thing. I love pumpkin. I love pumpkin soup. I love pumpkin pasta. And a great pumpkin pie should just scream autumn. And this one does. So I love gingerbread, ginger cookies. And this one has a little extra ginger of the spice, but it also, before we pour in the custard after the shell is pre-baked, we add candied ginger root. We slice it up and put it on the bottom of the pie shell. And when the pie is baked or is baking, it kind of melts. The candied ginger root melts a little bit. And you have that extra ginger there, but also the dark rum. Really just kicks it up, and just really like that. So starting out, we're going to combine 2 sugars. Okay, we're going to have a half cup of dark brown. Now, I think the original recipe called for just regular or light brown sugar, but it's, for me, it's like, no, I want it dark. Okay, I want that extra molasses in there. It just, to me, it just enriches the flavor of it. We want some sugar. And this is calling for 1/8. So it'll be half of a fourth cup, 1/4 cup of white sugar. And I'm going to warm up this butter just a little bit. It's already kind of soft, but I want a let's see. Oh, that's for the other recipe, but that's fine. I can let it melt for the other recipe. So here I am. Again, try to break down the lumps as much as possible. Combine those 2 sugars. So
I have somebody asking what the difference is between dark and light brown sugar.
I think it's the amount of molasses that is used. Light brown, some things, you know, you don't want to have too much of a molasses flavor. So light brown would be preferable. In baking, quite often I will go with the dark brown because I like that extra molasses flavor. This one, I will be adding molasses to. I couldn't find grandma's molasses up here. Maybe it's just not available, but Wholesome sells an organic molasses. Okay. And I love molasses. Okay, so what we're going to do is just have a little pinch of salt. Just a little bit there. And this is now where we're going to be adding our spices. There are you. There you are. And again, it's good to make sure that our spices aren't 1,000 years old. You know, after a while, they lose their potency. Also, I've been told not to put your spices above a heat source because that will also age them a bit. So I'm going to put in 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. I like Simply Organic. I don't know if that's available around here. This is probably something I had gotten in Dallas. I think they are available.
Yeah, we have those downstairs.
Yeah. Okay, good. We do have that here. I like them. I try, again, to go as organic as possible. And the ginger, a half teaspoon. And we're going to put in some nutmeg. Again, I just love the melody of the different autumnal spices just works so beautifully with each other. I just love it. Okay, we already put in the nutmeg. I thought that was cinnamon, but that's fine. I love nutmeg. Yep. And now we have, let's see here, and cloves. Do we have cloves in the?
I believe so. Let me look for you.
Okay. And if we don't have cloves, then that's perfectly fine. The spices here.
I found whole cloves, but that's not going to work for you.
Okay, well, that's fine.
There we go.
Oh, we do?
Yep.
Hurrah!
Ground clove.
Hooray! Thank you so much. And that just shows that even when we're at our most prepared, sometimes we forget something, and it's not a catastrophe. I found out at the last minute, oh, I forgot to put something in the dish or in the filling for pie, and then I put it in the last moment. Or sometimes we turn out, oh, we don't have it. Really, you'd be surprised to learn how many great desserts or dishes kind of come from mistakes. You know, something didn't turn out the way or you intended, or someone didn't have all the ingredients that they wanted. So, but luckily we do have some ground cloves. I love cloves. So, but again, we try to be prepared, but sometimes, you know, we forget something, and this is not about being perfect. This is not about being perfect. It's being creative and with what we have, and try to be as prepared as possible. Okay, we got that. Now we're going to put in our molasses. Okay, how much molasses are we going to put in? A half tablespoon. Here we go.
And just a reminder for everybody who attends a lot of our classes, this class actually goes to 7:30. We have 2 hours for this one. A lot of ours go to 7, but got plenty of time for this one, so stick around.
And how much time do we have?
It is 6:20. Plenty of time.
So we're on till 7:30?
Yep.
Okay, super, super, super. All right. Again, it's okay to use your fingers to make sure we get all that goodness from the molasses. Try not to let anything go to waste. Okay. Okay. And if I could have something to wipe my hands. Normally I would lick my fingers, but then wash them immediately. I have to do this as though my mom was watching. In a way, I have to say, you know, things, since it's Halloween, and I always thought Halloween was like Westerners' Ancestors' Day, you know, remembering our ancestors. And one way of remembering our ancestors and what we've gotten from them is cooking the foods that they liked, you know. but they enjoy. And when I bake, I feel that I am connected with my mom and with her mother. And the love that they showed me and my brothers and their friends by their cooking. So it's a wonderful way of keeping alive traditions that are, I want to say, healing, life affirming. Of course, with desserts, you don't want to do them all the time. That would not be healthy, okay? But once in a while. And I think I think it was Martin Luther, the reformist of the Reformation, not one of my heroes, mind you, but I think he said, when you sin, sin lustfully. You know, don't do it often. But so it's like a dessert. It's a little bit like a sin. It isn't, you know, the healthiest thing all the time, of course. But once in a while, when you do a dessert, do it right. Make it as wonderful as possible, and just, you know, don't scamp. Don't buy a frozen pie or whatever. You know, if you're in a pinch, okay. But I think it's better to, you know, don't do desserts that often, but when you do it homemade. You know, has the love, and it will taste a whole lot better than a store-bought. Okay, thank you very much. So as you can see, work the molasses and the spices and the different sugars with the pumpkin. Got a nice, isn't that beautiful? The colors. That's gorgeous. That's just gorgeous. And now, in another bowl, I'm going to beat my eggs. Going to use 2 eggs. There we go. Sometimes we have to deal with the fact that we get shells. I think next time I'll use my knife. I have a little knife that I will use. And it's okay. And we just get in there and get the little shell pieces out. Oh, there we go. That's fine. And where is my little knife? Here we go. All right. There we go. That's much better. Some people can tap it on the side and get a clean break. I don't know why I tried, because I can't do it.
I've always been told you need to tap it on a flat surface, because tapping it on the edge of the bowl is what shoves little bits of shell into it. Live and learn. I still can't do the one-handed thing though. I want to get the one-handed thing.
No, I won't try that. No need for it. Now I do have an electric mixer, and I will use it later. But I also just love using a whisk and just work it in. And this is now we're going to use the quick catch. California Farms Organic Evaporated Milk. Of course, you know, there are many other different brands. And again, I chose this because it was organic. And I try to go as organic as possible. Okay. Try to have a light footprint on the earth as possible. And I'm just going to pour in this whole thing. It's pretty much close to being 1 cup. Okay. Go. And now we will beat that in.
And the best part, the rum.
Yes, the piece de resistance. Now, I love a good cocktail. Love a great glass of wine. And a great German or Belgian beer. Thick enough, weedy and malty enough, and high alcohol content, but thick enough that you could spread butter on it. I joke. But I also love, in moderation, of course, for health reasons. But adding alcohol to baking, oh, by the way, this is just water. Gin will come after this. I assure you. But anyway, now comes the, here we go. The dark rum. Ooh, I wish you could smell that.
I know, I wish we had smell-o-vision. I wish that was a thing.
Yeah, oh gosh, it's so wonderful. It is so wonderful. Okay, and 2 tablespoons of dark rum. Let me find my, oh, there it is. Oops. There. There we go. And work that in. I didn't want to dip the spoon into the rum because the spoon was covered with a lot of different stuff.
Somebody asked what brand of dark rum you prefer.
Oh my gosh, I wish I would have brought the bottle, but we were not able to bring in the bottle.
Sorry, rules.
And no, that's fine. Use whatever dark rum you want. I think the one I've used is the most common one. It's not expensive. So, but I think with this, it needs to be a dark rum because you want that richness, that kind of dark richness that comes with this kind of a rum. And then I'm going to use my mixer. And work it in. Now again, does this look hard? It's time consuming. I'll grant you that. But is it hard? Yeah. So I give it a nice work over. Want to make sure that I don't see like strands of molasses or not as much. I want it to be a pretty consistent color. And there you are. again, time consuming? Can be. There are some, you know, very simple desserts. Even pies, like fruit pies, are really the most time consuming thing is cutting the fruit. But other than that, okay, so we have our filling. Now, just to let people know, you can use sugar pumpkins. If you really want to go old-fashioned, and I've done this before a couple of times, you can cut your pumpkin. This is a sugar pumpkin. It's meant to be used for making desserts with pumpkins. And you just cut it in and take out the seeds and steam it, okay? And then you don't even have to peel it. You can just scoop out the meat and then puree it. So it's a nice thick puree pumpkin. So just to let you know, if you want to say, I did it the real old-fashioned way, you can impress your friends. Okay, now comes the part of, okay, we've been having our dough chilling. So now I can show you rolling dough, okay? How to roll dough. All right, I think our dough is still in the cooler. Oh, here it is. Okay. Now I thought I had brought extra pie shells, and this is my first time to do this, and I'm finding out, oh no, I don't think I did. However, no, well, I'll show those later. So I'll just show you how to roll it, okay? I'll just show you how to roll it. And again, this is my, yes, we can use that. Or at least I can show you how to use the tart pan. Let's do it that way. So, this is the smaller one. So I dust the board. Like so. Because you don't want your pie dough to get stuck on the board, okay? And we don't want that. So I make sure that both sides of the dough ball is covered with enough flour. Now, there's different rolling pins. Some people swear by this. Now, I didn't have one like this. Maybe if I had one like this, I would have stuck with it. I didn't have one this large. And this looks pretty imposing. If somebody's aggravating you in your kitchen, you just pick this up and I think they will get the message. However, I like the French one because, I mean, it's seamless, okay? It's just very seamless and I like that, and I'm kind of partial to French stuff. So here I am. So are we getting this? The rolling? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Yep. I just want, and so I'm trying to make it as circular as possible. Okay. And I want it large enough, so I'm going to fill in my pie plate or my tart pan so that I have enough of an overhang so that when I tuck those overhangs in, I have a nice wall of dough to circle the filling. Because I want to have enough, a wall, if you will, that contains the filling that's strong enough to be able to do that and prevent the filling from spilling over. You don't want that. I don't know, I really like doing this way. Okay. And we're looking here. And yeah, that looks like I'm going to have a good overhang. Again, I want to have a good overhang of dough on all sides. Because when I put it in, I want there to be a sufficient wall of crust that surrounds the filling. Okay. It's inevitable, it seems, that there's going to be spilling of filling, as I experienced earlier today. So it's probably a good thing that you have a big cooking sheet with ridges underneath your pies, or pie, or tart, or cover the bottom of your oven with a aluminum foil. Okay. Sometimes I've had pies where, making a pie, I forgot to do that, and the smoke was coming out of the oven. So you don't want to smoke your pie. Though I had someone at a pie competition down in Dallas, which I participated in a number of times, and one time for my lavender blueberry pie, and the other time for my salted caramel apple pie. But somebody had like smoked pecan pie, which was incredible. It was gorgeous, and it tasted amazing. Also, I'm pretty sure it had alcohol in it too. So here you go. This is what I mean about overhang. And this would be the same thing if it was a regular pie plate. Okay. And of course, when you're looking at the recipe, it will let you know how much flour or how big amount of pie dough. If you're going to have a regular 9-inch, like a single crust pie, or if you're going to do like with my fruit pies, I make it for both top and bottom, but I don't separate the two doughs. I have just one dough, roll it out, fill it up, put the dough in, rolled out dough in a pie plate, fill it up with the fruit, and then fold over the overlays, the overhang, and just leave a little opening on top, or cover it completely and then put in air vents for your pie. It's perfect. So now this is enough. And as you see what I'm doing, I may take a little bit off if I see a place that looks a little skimpy. And again, this is not difficult. It's sad that people think that, oh, this is too hard. No, it's not. And just think of the fun. So many of us have denied ourselves by thinking, oh, this is whatever it is, be it cooking, pies, or cooking Italian, or authentic French, or whatever, playing guitar. People, we convince ourselves, oh, I can't do it. No, we can do it. We can do it. And what a joyful thing. To have friends come over, and here's this wonderful dessert that you made. that you made. No one, you know, mom didn't make it, you made it. And then, you know, I mean, sometimes people just bring chips to a potluck or whatever. And now, you know, next time they say, hey, I'm bringing this pie that I made. And people will be very impressed. Okay. And for you guys out there, your significant other will be quite impressed that, you know your way around a kitchen. Every guy should know their way around a kitchen and have a few desserts that they can create from scratch. It's not enough to tell mom, I can do my laundry. Okay, well, that's a good start, okay, that you can do your laundry. But really impress your parents by, hey, I'm having you over for dinner and I made desserts. They will be impressed. And then, of course, you can have the leftovers when they leave. Okay. I think I'll put that here. And this is soft enough that I can work with. Okay. Soft enough that I can work it in. And as you can see, I have a nice wall crust. And I want to kind of, pack it in and leave, make a clear, that it's not sloping inside. There's a clear wall because I want to get as much filling into the pie. Okay. So here we go. Now, since this is a pumpkin pie that we're going to do, the next thing is the candied ginger root.
Do you want to demo the pumpkin pie with your blind baked crust? And so you have the pie plate, and then we have the tart for the maple.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, talk about blind baking, and then we'll do it with
Thank you. So this will be for the tart. Thank you. Mm-hmm. This is a pre-baked pie crust. And again, with pie crust, pre-baking, you just would use some of this parchment paper. And then I would prick with a fork the shell because you don't want it to puff up when it's baking. Okay. And don't worry, when it bakes, the holes will pretty much close up. Okay. You just cover it up, put in your pie weights, bake for 10 minutes with the pie weights and paper in. After 10 minutes, you take that out, have something ready that you can just dump the paper and the pie weights, okay? And then let it bake for 10 more minutes. After that, you take it out and you let it cool. Now,
so this is why we don't often encourage people to bake along, because a lot of times we have stuff kind of pre-prepped. So this shell has been par baked already. So if you're following along, you might be a little bit behind.
Because I can assure you that pumpkin pie takes longer to cook. And I think any custard pie is sort of like that. And again, this is candied ginger root. I mean, you can just eat this straight up. If you ever have an upset stomach and you don't have fresh ginger to make tea with, just eat a couple of these.
Somebody asked, do you put the parchment paper on and then poke the holes in both the paper and the crust?
You
crust first.
Put the holes in the crust first. You cover up with the wax paper or the parchment paper, not wax, but parchment paper. Then put the weights. Okay. The air coming from the holes in the pie crust, they will find a way of coming up. Okay. It's not like it's hermetically sealed. So, but here I am. If I had a little more time, I would have cut these up earlier, but then you wouldn't see the pleasure of my cutting this. And of course, you can put in as much as you want, but not too much, okay? Because you already have the ginger, powdered ginger. So this should be enough after this. Okay. I think maybe just one more. There we go. Just like that. And now we are ready for our filling. And if I could get that rinsed, those, because I will be using that. So here we are.
Got it. Thanks.
And now I'm going to put it in the oven. And before I do, I want to show you, since pumpkin pie takes a while to cook, in my past experience with pumpkin pie, the crust invariably starts browning before it gets browned, too brown. It's not covered, okay? And this is one of the larger ones I could find. Mrs. Addison's, I believe. You can find a pie crust shield at, cooking stores. Find one that is the broadest possible, okay? And then now I'm going to take this over to the oven. And there we are. And that will take at least an hour. It says 45 minutes to 60. My experience is at least an hour. One way, traditionally, to tell when pumpkin pie is ready is that they recommend that you get a knife and you put it in the center. If it comes out clean, in other words, not too goopy, then it's ready to go. Okay, so that's one good way of testing pumpkin pie. So at least 30 minutes. Now, we're going to get started on our wonderful coffee maple walnut tart with a semi-sweet chocolate bits.
Somebody asks when you would take off the pie crust shield. How long would you give it without the shield?
I would keep it on
the whole time?
The whole way through. Okay. I baked one earlier today and I didn't put it on at the beginning and it still looks good, but for my taste, it's a little bit browner than I would want it to be. So it will cook. It will cook because it will be warm, but you don't want it, it will slow down the baking of it. So I rather have a lighter crust, you know, crust edge. I don't want it too dark. Okay, and you do want the crust to be lighter than your filling. Okay, just that nice to me, it's a nice combination, you know, of the lighter crust and your darker filling. Okay, now we're going to get started on our walnut tart, and yes. So what we're doing, we're going to have about 3/4 cup of maple syrup. Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's about right. That's another reason why we moved to Vermont, is the maple syrup. It's a little cheaper here than we. Oh,
I'll do a quick hand wash.
Sorry about that.
It's habit. I know. I do it all the time in my own kitchen.
Yep. I just hate the thought of rinsing maple syrup away. I love it so much. Sorry about that. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of espresso. And I use the
Medaglia d'Oro.
yes, I make espresso. Well, I don't use an espresso machine. I'm lazy. I just use hot boiling water and combine that and add whatever I want, which is usually maple syrup and a light cream. And so with this, I want to kind of work the coffee into the maple syrup. And I'm going to put it on the stove, not too high heat. And I don't want to boil it, but I wanted to get just where it's almost going to start boiling. So while that's going, I'm going to put in, yes. My butter and sugar. Let me get the butter. Okay, I think maybe a little too done. But I have butter here that has been sitting out all the time and it's soft. Use that instead. Okay.
Do you want me to keep an eye on the maple syrup on the stove for you?
If you could.
Absolutely. Yeah. We don't want it to boil, not quite.
Yeah, we don't want it to boil over. It's a mess.
Fine.
It's a tasty mess, but it's a mess. Okay. So while that's going, I want almost a cup of brown sugar. And again, whoops, sorry. And again, I want dark brown sugar. I think, again, this recipe also called for regular light brown. And that just doesn't work for me. Again, I like that molasses taste. Okay. So now I'm working the sugar and the butter together. You can put the butter not too early in the oven so it can melt a little bit, and then you let it cool. Or if you just leave your butter out for a long time, it will be soft and you can work it in. Okay. Don't try to put in refrigerated butter without softening it with your sugar and try to work the sugar into the butter. No, it won't work. So here we are. It's mixing nicely.
As we come up to 7, just a reminder that we are going until 7:30 tonight. So even though I know a lot of you have attended our classes before and they end at 7, this one you get bonus content. We're going for another half hour.
Okay. Got that going. And 3 eggs beaten. Okay. Thank you. So 3 eggs beaten. And for those who are like me, who are clean freaks, I try to clean as I go along. That's not going to happen tonight. Just want to make sure we get these in the oven. But you can clean as you go along. All right.
The other good thing about teaching is that I do all the cleaning, so you don't have to do any of it. You've got me.
Oh, that is so nice. But I did clean up our kitchen before we got here. You know, it's like I was brought up kind of like cleanliness is next to godliness, which is kind of obsessive, but I am obsessive compulsive. And so I just can't bear to have a dirty kitchen or leave my kitchen looking dirty. But then Fred, my hubby, who's here watching to give me moral support, is just perfect about helping cutting fruits and or nuts and cleaning up and providing me with refreshments to keep me going. Clean that up a bit. And little mishaps happen. I think I remember that scene with Julia Child when she dropped her chicken or duck on the floor and she said, "Who's to know?" Well, I want you to know I watched this and cleaned it and sterilized it. So that she can get away with it. I can't. So okay, and then I want to check. It's getting there. And I wish you could smell it. You know, oh, it's getting ready to boil. Okay, I think that's good enough. I think that's good enough. All right, we're going to put that right here. But the butter, I mean the maple syrup and the espresso grounds or just ground coffee, I just want to kick it up with the caffeine. It almost smells, I can smell both the chocolate, I can smell the maple and the coffee, and yet at the same time, both together, it almost smells like chocolate to me. Interesting. So now I'm going to put in my beaten eggs with the brown sugar and work that in. You want to go ahead get that going. Of course, you can use the mixer, but I didn't have time to rinse it. But this is okay. It's going to mix well enough. Now, this is my first time to do a televised in, something like this. So if it hasn't gone as seamlessly smooth, I'm learning. But again, we're all learning right now, okay? And and I hope you've been enjoying this as much as I have, even though this is new for me. Doing it on camera, it just feels natural for me because I just enjoy cooking a lot. Okay, now here's our walnuts. And let me put this out of the way. I have to admit, even though I'm from Texas, it's been a long time since I made pecan pie. So I have to say my mother's pecan pie over the years, towards the end, it was just incredible. It wasn't overly sweet. It wasn't hard like block candies. Some of them can be. And she didn't have huge pieces of pecan, which would have been gross. I mean, some people like that and it can look really pretty, but I don't want big chunks of nuts in my, walnuts or pecans in my mouth. I want it to where I can feel it, I can taste it, but it's like huge chunks, which is uncomfortable for my mouth. So what I'm doing is I have chopped up some walnuts, and I'm just going to sprinkle this. And I'm doing this now because I'm letting the maple and coffee mixture cool a little bit, okay? Because I'm going to add it to the sugar, butter, egg mixture, okay? And I don't want to cook that mixture before it gets into the oven because I'm putting in something hot into it. Again, this is a little more broken than some of the other pieces, so I don't have to chop too much. If I see too big of a piece, I'll just break it. Again, I don't want the primary sensation in people's mouths to be, oh, I'm eating a big chunk of whatever, walnut, pecan, whatever. I want them to enjoy the full experience of feeling the custard, tasting the taste, and being able to crunch on smaller pieces of walnut as they're enjoying the filling. But that's just me. The original recipe called for whole walnuts. So do what you want. Okay, that is that one. Okay, well, that's probably enough walnuts, right? So here we go. And now, I'm going to put in a little bit at a time the maple syrup coffee mixture. Just a little bit at a time. And you need a filter because that powder espresso, you don't want it going into your tart. Okay, you don't want that. You don't, when you drink coffee, you don't drink the grounds, right? It's the same applies here. You just want the flavor. So just a little bit of that and work that in. Work that in. A little bit at a time. And as you can see, it captures the grounds, and there's plenty of grounds, I can tell you. And the real star of this show just handed me my semi-sweet chocolate bits. Thank you, Cassie. And again, since this is a little hot, I don't want to overwhelm the egg mixture with something hot, just a little bit at a time. I don't want scrambled eggs in my tart. I love scrambled eggs, but not with this.
That's a quiche. That's something different.
Yeah, that would be a quiche, and somehow a sweet quiche.
Maple pecan quiche.
I don't know, a sweet quiche, that just doesn't appeal to. I love quiches, and it's been a while since I made one, and I need to do it sometime soon, but not a sweet one. So again, you can see the that this filter mesh is, let's just go there. And it's been capturing. Okay, and that is your filling right there. And let me tell you, it is delicious. It is. It's even better when it's baked. Okay, now this is probably the piece de resistance, is adding the semi-sweet chocolate. Or you can go with dark chocolate. I was debating about that. I mean, I love dark chocolate. So, you know, I'm just doing like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's kind of impressionistic. Just like that. And now we pour in. And I kind of do it slowly because I don't want to smoosh up too much my walnuts and my chocolate bits. just like that. Now with my last one, I had a little bit extra filling, and they don't throw it away. Good grief, no. I just heated up some water, added some espresso to the hot water, and then I just added this to it. And it was, and then I had some leftover evaporated milk that I added to it, and then I just put all that into my cup of coffee. Maybe not the healthiest, but I hate to waste anything. And so now we're going to put this wonderful tart.
Do you want a baking tray for it?
No, that's okay. Now, if folks don't, if you feel like it would be better if you had a baking tray, do that. This has been doing this way. Usually I'm pretty close to my oven when I do this. And oh, I wish you could smell the pumpkin pie. It smells incredible. So let me show you what these two pieces of dessert look like.
Yeah, TV magic. It's like we put them in and they're done already. It's crazy.
I made this earlier today. I knew enough that you have to, you know, I've watched enough cooking shows to know you have to have the finished product. And this is the extra ginger dark rum pumpkin pie. And this is the walnut tart.
Beautiful.
They're both beautiful. And I guess we have time for folks to taste.
Yes. That's part of the class.
That's part of the class. I just wish y'all were here to imbibe. So
yeah, so now is also a perfect time for people to put some last minute questions into the chat. If you have any questions for Gary, I will monitor those and pass them along. So go ahead and I will keep an eye on the question and answer box in these last few minutes. We have about 15.
And do we have plates?
Yes,
and utensils?
I will grab them for you.
And I did bring whipping cream, but I guess I don't have time to whip it up.
Sure you do. Only 7:15.
Oh, okay. I guess we can do that. With this, we could serve whipping cream or creme fraiche. I love creme fraiche. Since this is really sweet, having creme fraiche with this would probably be good. And regular whipping cream with this, okay? But when I do whipping cream, I put sugar to taste and vanilla. So, but let's try this. And are there any questions?
None coming in so far, but I'm giving people a few more minutes in case they are furiously typing.
All right.
We do have time left in class, so.
Here you go.
Thank you.
And my hubby gets one.
Of course, he gets the first one.
He helped me bring all my stuff. The only thing we didn't bring is our couch.
You have a question? Yeah.
Yes.
Fred, what can we help you with? He said, does this have a crack in it?
Of course not, silly man. It's meth. That's it.
No.
I'm joking,
Chocolate.
joking.
Chocolate.
It has chocolate in it, and it has maple, espresso, butter, brown sugar, eggs. I mean, who needs fat when you got fat. Any comments from the
None?
director?
Oh, I don't want to eat it because everyone's going to hear me chewing because I have the mic right next to my mouth. So I will try it after we're done the class, but it smells amazing. I don't want to make everybody listen to me chew.
I've been told that when people smack their lips, it is a sign, it's a not discourteous in certain cultures. And here is our pumpkin pie. This one you don't have to chew. You can just let it melt in your mouth. Okay?
So we had someone comment, you made the tart, but our recipe is for a pie plate. I think we meant to say a 9-inch tart pan in the maple coffee
right
pie.
I think originally I was thinking that to make it simpler for folks, that I would just do it as, you can do it in a pie plate. Mm-hmm. But then somehow I just thought, well, okay, the crust is more like for a pie.
Deeper.
But I wanted people to see, oh, this is what a tart looks like. Usually with tarts, you can use a regular pie crust like I did. I think it works fine. But quite often the crust is different. Like originally for this walnut tart, it would be butter and some egg and powdered sugar added to it. So usually for tarts, you probably will have a crust that's more like a butter sugar crust. Mm-hmm. Okay. But since we're doing 2 pies, I wanted to make it simple and just have one crust recipe. Okay. So that's why I did it that way.
So
but
if you don't have a tart pan, like the kind with the removable bottom, could you do this recipe in a pie plate?
Yes, you can.
Work?
Yeah, you
Great.
most definitely you can. Is there something about a tart pan that's so elegant? It's so elegant.
Yeah.
And it's a real, people say, wow, how did you do that? Well, I mean, you use a tart pan. And there are some desserts that you really do need to have a tart pan, but you can get a tart pan at any, store that has baking goods, or go to a cooking store, and you can find one. I would not get any kind of tart or pie pan that has any kind of chemical sprayed on it for non-sticking. I don't care for that, and this one certainly didn't at home. So, but I would say get a tart pan and start exploring. You can have savory tarts, for quiches. And it's so elegant and so beautiful, A regular apple pie, you don't want to use a tart. But tarts like this, or a tart that has custard and fruit, then you would want to use a tart pan. I don't think you want to have a really deep tart pan or a deep pie plate for that, because I think the shallow it is, the quicker the filling can cook. If you have something really deep, it'll take it longer and it may not turn out the way you want it to. Now, do you want to try the filling of the pumpkin?
I'll take my microphone off for a second, move it away from my mouth, and try to.
Right, and then if that's the case, try both of them. So again, and I guess I should let my hubby try the pumpkin. Again, I have to say, I wish I had put the pie shield on the crust a little bit sooner for the pumpkin, but it's not too overcooked.
Can confirm they are both delicious. All right, so we're going to wrap up for tonight unless there's any further questions. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you for letting us know where you're tuning in from. That's awesome to hear that we have people from across the continent. I will send a survey link out tomorrow morning. Would love to know your thoughts on the class, ideas for other live stream classes that you'd like to see from us. And I would also love to see photos. If you bake these recipes, please send me pictures and I will share them with Gary. We love seeing when people cook along with the recipes that we send out and how they turn out. So please send me those in an email. I'd love to see them. Gary.
And go to Facebook. Last week I created the Pie Guy Facebook site. And if you're in this area of Burlington or somewhere even around Burlington, and you would like a pie for Thanksgiving or during the holiday seasons that are soon upon us, let me know. And I do fruit pies. I make mincemeat without the meat, custard pies, all sorts. And, so also I do pie classes or pie parties. I go to people's homes, show them how to make a pie or 2 pies or whatever. We have hors d'oeuvres. The last one I did, somebody was making cocktails, and that was fun. And we did my salted caramel apple pie, and one of them was a regular crust. The other was my first time to do a non-gluten crust, which was excellent. And they loved it. And doing pie parties at people's homes is just a lot of fun. So thank you so much, and enjoy the holidays. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.